You are listening to the Sports Corner on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. And folks, today is Thursday, September 11th, and it is time to talk sports. Week 2 of the NFL season starts tonight. Packers and Commanders, we will get into that. And then on the MLB side of things, the playoff race is heating up. There's some teams that are currently outside of the picture looking to knock on the door and get in. But we will get into all of that and much more. I'm your host, Sebastian Stratton. Joined alongside me is my favorite co-host, Mr. Lorenzo Gonzalez. And we have another person with us today, an ADJ looking to get his reps on the air and just be a part of this great show. Why don't you introduce yourself?
How's it going, everybody? My name is James Gregg, and I'm a studying sports media student, and I'm happy to be here today.
Very nice. Great introduction. And James, I know we talked about it a little bit before, but give the listeners an insight. What is your thing when it comes to sports?
When it comes to me, it's everything baseball. I'm the biggest Yankees fan you'll ever meet in your entire life. I live and breathe that team. And yeah, baseball is what I want to study. It's what I want to do with my career. And if you need to know anything about it, I'm the place to go.
That is perfect. I am glad to hear that. But we will get right into some football talk because week 1 of the NFL season is complete. And Lorenzo, I see you smiling over there because there are some teams that, wow, we just have to get into them. And let's start off with the New York Jets. They just do not seem like the same old Jets. Lorenzo, what do you have to say about this?
What a game. What a game. You know, first of all, if I was, this was the game of the week to me. You could say Bills and Ravens, but this was the game of the week right here. Talk about winning it off a kick, a field goal kick by, you know who, our main guy, sincerely, Boswell. If I'm a Jets fan, though, this is not a bad thing. I don't consider this loss, a bad loss because your team fought till the very end. They had a great defense. Literally the first play of the game, Quentin Williams sacks Aaron Rodgers. This team's defense the whole game, and the offense was in motion. I haven't seen an offense and a defense for the Jets play in that kind of motion since 2010. And that's saying a lot because this team has had 15 years of just awful play all around. I feel like now it's too early to call because it is week 1, but the Jets, this game was certainly a turnaround for them. And this is a pivotal moment and this is an amazing game for Glenn as the rookie head coach. This is his first shot out of the barrel, and he almost beats the Steelers. I mean, there was a point where we were down by like 8 points, or over 12, I think, right? And it was in double digits. And the Jets were really just giving it to us, unlike last year's game where they really just collapsed the second half. No, this year, they really just fought us toe-to-toe, offense and defense, and it was a perfectly balanced game that any fan of football can love. If I'm a Jets fan, it is a heartbreaking loss, but I will take that. I will take that as like a pivotal turning point for my team because, hey, let's be honest, I haven't seen really too much if I'm a Jets fan.
The past 10 or so years have just been miserable. Multiple head coaches, players going left and right. You draft Sam Darnold in the first round. He fails, but the Jets just seemed so comfortable, specifically quarterback Justin Fields. You implement him in this Tanner Engstrand system, who is now, for those who don't know, is the Jets' new offensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn brings him in, kind of steals him from Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions because Tanner Engstrand last year was the offensive coordinator. No, not the offensive coordinator, excuse me. He was the passing game coordinator for the Detroit Lions. Basically, he was Ben Johnson's understudy. So he got to see first person what it was like to run a great offense with a quarterback at the helm who can throw the ball, a great running game. You had Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, a solid passing game, and a big tight end, Sam Laporta. So now Engstrand comes into New York and implements this system, and we see a lot of the same things. Garrett Wilson, the number 1 option, similar to Amon-Ra St. Brown when he was with the Lions, that big threat. Mason Taylor, the tight end that they draft out of LSU in the second round, he wasn't involved too much in the passing game, but again, he's a 21-year-old rookie. He's learning the offense. And then the read options. Lorenzo, we both watched the game. There was basically no answer for the Jets. For the Steelers with that read option.
No.
TJ Watt, there was a few times where TJ Watt was physically tackling Justin Fields and Breece Hall had the football. So there was just so much motion, so many screens, and a lot of continuity within that Jets offense against the Steelers defense that has a bunch of future Hall of Famers.
Excellent points made. I did want to stress out about the Steelers defense because that is by far our biggest concern right now. And TJ Watt is the one guy that I'm most concerned about on that defense because, yeah, they didn't run anything against him. If you watch the game and if you saw the grid, because I saw a post on Instagram too, the grid, they never ran their offense on TJ Watt's side, the Jets. However, look at how great they had a rookie offensive tackle that was on him. Look at how great of if you watch the film over, you see this guy just bulldozing him. Like just it's like he's an immovable object. Really, and he's a rookie. That is a player that you want on your Jets team, and I would keep him as much as possible for as many years as you can get from him because if he played that great against one of the best linebackers in the league, what can happen? What can say when they play the Browns? What could happen with Myles Garrett? It was just an awful defensive performance though, and that's something that I won't get too. I know it's kind of contradictory to what I said. I wouldn't get my hopes too high because of that if I'm a Jets fan then again. Because the Steelers really didn't have a good defensive performance. That's agreed upon by everybody, I think. That's like a solid thing. That's a solid statement to say. They really didn't have a great defensive performance. That game was all offense. I can already bring up Aaron Rodgers. 4 touchdown passes on the whole day. 22 of 30. Almost 300 yards. That was a phenomenal game. That is a game that silenced the critics in my eyes. And he did it to his former team, which when we talked about last episode, flew him out just to say, no, we don't want you on the team coming this year. That was a statement. And as a Steelers fan, that was the best opening win that you can have for the season, for that matter. Jalen Ramsey, love it. Love his attitude and love his enthusiasm. DK Metcalf, great game. And even the other receivers who just a lot of people haven't been too key, who haven't been too talked about too much. They still had a solid performance.
I think anytime you can escape week 1 with a victory, whether that's a blowout or a close game, obviously every team in the NFL after week 1, you have something to work on. Because, again, you don't have the film on tape in regular game action to be able to prepare and get ready for these offenses and defenses. All you have is some clips from last year in the preseason. But again, most teams don't come out there and show you everything that they have in preseason. They want to save it for the regular season because that's when the action matters the most. A lot is looking well for the Jets. But again, as you said, Lorenzo, it's week 1. They have to carry this over into week 2 and build a foundation for a successful season and a successful next, decade, 5 years at least. For Aaron Glenn, you don't want to be rotating head coaches every 2 or 3 years. That's not the way it should go, but it's just very unfortunate. James, do you have anything that you would like to add to that?
Nah. I'm not the craziest versed in football as I am in baseball, but, from what I've watched, especially for listeners who don't know, I do work at MetLife Stadium, so I see every home Jets and Giants game. Hasn't been great football over the past couple of years, but the Jets did look somewhat in control. It felt like they had footing underneath them, and that's something that you don't see on the MetLife turf too often from a home team. They definitely looked like they definitely look better. It's a loss, and you never like to glorify a loss, but it's something that you could take away. It's a loss that you could take something away from. And
they led at halftime too. That's another thing. The Jets led at halftime going into the third quarter. Even though it was 19-17, still, how many times do the Jets get a lead nowadays?
Yeah.
How many times do you have the MetLife fans actually cheering and showing support for your team? Every time it seems as if a team with a big fan base plays the Jets, all their fans just take over MetLife Stadium. And, you actually saw a lot of Jet fans rooting and supporting for their team, and that's how it should be. Because as a head coach for the Jets and everybody on the team, you don't want the fans to come in. You want to have something to show them because that is the product you are putting on tape and displaying to everyone. So good luck to the Jets for the rest of the season. And continuing on the NFL side of things, I want to put out this question because, again, we had a lot of ups and downs in week 1 of the NFL season. And Lorenzo, I will pose this question to you because I know you have a big take on this. But after week 1, I know it's early, but we like to be very spicy on this show, and we like to give the best takes out there. So my question to you is, after week 1, which coach is on the biggest hot seat and is most likely to be fired before the season concludes?
Oh, see, I had a perfect answer, and then you said before the season concludes. See, I know that this guy's going to get fired, but I don't know about before the season concludes. But the one guy, there's no question about it, who had the worst performance as a coach this week, that's on the hot seat big time, Mike McDaniel of the Dolphins. Oh, and a tie. I'll do a tiebreaker here. A two-way tie, call it. Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll. And I say McDaniel first because, like I said last week, this is your proven year. This is your year, because we said on the show last week who has the hot seat going into the season. The same question. McDaniel had an awful game plan with the Dolphins that week. They lost to the Colts. They lost to Indianapolis, a team that had literally no expectations going into the season. You know, they made Daniel Jones look like the second coming of Peyton Manning. It was I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe that they collapsed that much. And funny enough, Sebastian, I had the Dolphins winning that game. Thank God I'm not a betting man, huh? Like, it's just a terrible performance. They had, like we said, they had a rough last year. This is a terrible taste for the first game of your season with a loss 33-8. 33-8. Your whole team just doesn't play good. And another thing about him, we talked about this before the show started today. McDaniel's not a good motivator at all. And we talked about the press interviews with his stumbling. He's not a vocal coach, and that's the problem I have. That's a big problem that I have with coaches. If you can't be vocal with your team and tell your team, hey, we got to get on page and like be aggressive about it, because that's what football is. The best coaches are aggressive to their players about success. That's the truth. And McDaniel just isn't that. And I think he would be great in a position as an offensive coordinator. Now with Daboll, he has been on the hot seat for the past 2-3 years with Giants fans. This game did nothing more to prove that, and he's the number 2 spot for me, because what did the Giants change in their game plan, even though they have a whole different kind of roster from the past 2-3 years now? They've built this great roster of players, and yet the team still collapsed against not a team that's on top yet, but a rising, prominent Washington team. I feel both those, there's no question about it, both those coaches are on the hot seat.
Big time, and you talked about getting blown out. I understand that teams start off slow in week 1, but getting blown out that badly and just having players crash out on the sidelines. You saw Tyreek Hill throw his helmet multiple times. I think he's one of the top candidates to be traded at the trade deadline because it's not working out. They owe him a lot of money. Mike McDaniel doesn't seem to be rallying the troops. It's just going very poorly. And another guy that I want to mention as a part of that list that I think will be fired, he's kind of underrated, is Dave Canales, head coach for the Panthers. This is the 3rd year.
Oh, that's a good pick, yeah.
I mean, you saw the momentum last year towards the end of the season with Bryce Young actually playing well, hitting his receivers, using his mobility to his advantage. But now it comes to a point, you start off slow again in week 1. Dave Canales is in his 3rd year, and you have the weapons. You draft Teteroa McMillan in the 1st round out of Arizona, Xavier Legette in year 2, Hunter Renfrow, who you pick up, who's kind of been a journeyman, you pick him up, and then the O-line. A lot of good pieces there, very young. Chuba Hubbard, who had a career year. You trade for Rico Dowdle from the Cowboys, And Dave Canales is an offensive-minded coach, so he's another one. If they don't get it together after year 3, where forget about a playoff berth, how about go over 500? They've been under 500 in both years, and they've been unable to gain momentum from last season. And again, it's week 1, but you can't start off that slow, especially with the former first-round pick and Bryce Young. It's crazy to me.
And the fact that they played against the Jaguars, you played against a team that's been on that went right from its down year. Terrible performance. I expected a lot more from the Panthers, and there's just a huge letdown for week 1. Canales can't, and I didn't even think about him as a pick for that. But if he can't turn it around, he better start finding a new printing his job applications out.
Well, you talk about the Jaguars. Lorenzo, guess who was the only rookie coach to win in week 1? Liam Cohen. Everybody made fun of him for saying that at his press conference, but Liam Cohen comes in. He's another one. A very similar situation where you're not changing much with Tanner Engstrand and the Jets. From Lions to Jets, you have Liam Cohen, who was the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year, quarterback Baker Mayfield, running game in Bucky Irving and Rashad White, big body receivers Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and now you come to Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence as your quarterback. You have that 2 running back system in Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. Brian Thomas Jr. as your number 1, Travis Hunter, who you draft this past draft, and then you have big tight end Brenton Strange. So a lot of similarities in how the offense was ran last year in Tampa Bay, and now you bring it over to Jacksonville. Very interesting. But, Lorenzo, we talk about quarterback performances in week 1. There was a man in week 1 who kind of put the league on notice. Again, week 1, I know you don't fully agree with this take here, Lorenzo, but you have to give Daniel Jones his flowers. He did great in week 1. What do you think?
I think I know why they call him Danny Dimes now. They're going to have to call him Danny Dollars soon after this performance. I mean, I just said it's earlier. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what he has done. He is the luck. I'm going to say it right now to America. He is the luckiest quarterback in the NFL right now. And I'm going to tell you why. He got drafted by the Giants. He's the starting guy for 4 years, right? About 3-4 years. He leaves the Giants on a bad note, still gets the bag. He got paid over Saquon. He still leaves with the bag, goes to Minnesota, has a little joyride up there in the north, then gets picked as the starter over their guy, Anthony Richardson. Out of nowhere. And then the first game of the season, he balls out against the Dolphins. This man's winning, Sebastian. If you want to talk about winning as a quarterback just on and off the field, Danny Dimes is your man.
Daniel Jones, he just...
Bring up the numbers, too. 22 of 29. 272 yards.
Yes.
And 1 touchdown pass. Unbelievable.
And a lot of people that don't watch football...
and 2 touchdowns running, by the way.
I was just going to
2
mention
rushing
that.
touchdowns.
Because if you're a casual football fan and you look at the box score, you see that Daniel Jones only had 1 passing touchdown. You think, he did all right. Everybody else carried him. No, he used his legs too. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. And when you get a lead, you can implement that running game and pair it with play-action passing. Jonathan Taylor, 18 carries, 71 yards. And then I think Daniel Jones, I'm not saying the Colts are that good that they are a top 5 team, but their offense can be really, really good. They have weapons. Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, Adonai Mitchell, who wasn't even used. He's a 6'4 receiver who's a deep threat. Alec Pierce, who was the deep threat last game. And then you have Josh Downs. And then you draft Tyler Warren out of Penn State. People are saying, I know for those who play fantasy football, that he's this year's Brock Bowers. 7 receptions for 76 yards. And then your head coach, Shane Steichen, he's an offensive-minded coach. Yeah. So, I mean, Daniel Jones, if this is the year to get paid going into free agency, when people are comparing him to last year's Sam Darnold with the Minnesota Vikings, this is the year to do it. Jones has the weapons and everything to have a winning culture and make some noise in an AFC South division that always seems wide open.
100%, but I do want to say, I think that the end of your spiel there, I feel like that you put the Colts a little too high on the pedestal. It's week 1. We have to chill out. It's week 1. However, how can you not love Danny Dimes' story? How can you not love it?
If it was a situation, I'll say this about that, responding to you, Lorenzo. If it was a situation such as the Steelers, where the O-line plays poorly, only maybe 2 or 3 receivers get involved, I would agree. But here's the thing with the Colts. When you have a good O-line, they have a top 5 O-line. Quinton Nelson, their left guard, has been an all-pro every year for the past 5 years. You have the weapons. Again, similar to Justin Fields, is there a time where Daniel Jones becomes the true Daniel Jones that everyone says he is and plays poorly? Do people think that Justin Fields will return to his original form and play poorly? I don't know. Again, it's week 1. I like to be optimistic about all of this here because there's a lot going on in the National Football League. But we are going to take a quick break here on the Sports Corner. You are listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. And when we get back, we will shift over to Major League Baseball because there is a lot to talk about there in the upcoming playoff race. So stay tuned and don't go away just yet. We are back here on the Sports Corner. You are listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. And now it is time to shift over to Major League Baseball because there is a lot to talk about. But before we get into all of that, I want to give a quick shout out to Anthony Rizzo, who announces his retirement after a great 14-year career, which includes being a 3-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glove winner, and a World Series champion with the Chicago Cubs in 2016. Originally drafted by the San Diego Padres, which a lot of people don't know that, and he comes over to the Cubs, plays very well, and he was a great player. Always a guy who did the right thing, played great defense at first base, lefty bat with pop. Just a great all-around player, so best of luck to him and all his future endeavors. Gentlemen, anything you want to comment on Anthony Rizzo?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about guys who just played the game the right way, I mean, Anthony Rizzo is undoubtedly one of the people who come to mind. And he didn't have, like, a subpar career by any means. I mean, over 300 homers, 3-time All-Star, Platinum Glove winner, too. Played an absolutely pivotal role in the 2016 World Series and through his entire career, really, on the Cubs. And then even, while he may not be remembered for his fondest moments in New York, he had a great time on the Yankees. Like, he wasn't the big superstar bat we needed at the time in the early 2020s, but he's just a fantastic player, local guy from Lyndhurst, so he's gonna be remembered as definitely one of a guy who just played the right way, for sure.
Yeah, I wanted to add a little bit on it. Like James, it's kind of opposite here, folks. He's the biggest baseball guy. I'm the biggest football guy. We're kind of opposite. I'm not too in-depth with baseball, but Anthony Rizzo is by far one of the biggest names I've heard in baseball. Not only just here on the station, but in general. From just friends, people, even coworkers at my job. Anthony Rizzo is one of the best baseball players of this generation, by far. 3-time All-Star, 4-time Golden Glove winner, and of course, huge part of that drought, the ended drought of over 100 years at the Chicago Cubs, and finally win a World Series. He's a Chicago Cubs legend, and he's probably the best name that they've had ever, probably. Can you think of another guy that was as big a name as Anthony Rizzo, who played for 9 years in Chicago? And it's incredible that he's getting such an amazing respect and nod by the fans, as he deserves to. And the best part is, he retires as a Cub, and he's now the team ambassador for them, which is it's incredible. It's a perfect story ending to an amazing career, and I wish him all the best in his future endeavors in his retirement.
He's retiring as a Chicago Cub this Saturday, and you talked about how he's going to become a team ambassador for the Cubs. I compare it to Buster Posey, longtime catcher for the San Francisco Giants. When he retired, he went into the front office for the Giants, and he's been working there too. And James mentioned it as well, and we all mentioned it, but he is just a guy so conversational. He's just someone that you can go up to, have a conversation. You see it him interacting with fans during his playing time. Just a great guy. And if he was ever arguing about a call, you know that the umpire messed up, because he was someone who rarely got mad and just did things the right way. So best of luck to Anthony Rizzo. And now I want to shift over, because James, I know that you are a huge Yankee fan. So I think that this will kind of work well when it comes to Yankee talk. But the New York Yankees lost last night to the Detroit Tigers. The bullpen implodes once again, similar to Tuesday night. The Toronto Blue Jays lost to the Houston Astros. So the Yankees are still 3 games back in the division. That bottom of the lineup just looks like a dark hole. I don't know. It just seems as if they're going to get it together, it has to be now. And it seems as if Aaron Boone is still searching for his go-to guys in this Yankee bullpen, James.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've seen it before, not just in the bullpen, but just overall. Aaron Boone just plays his guys all the way up into the playoffs, and then we've seen it. We've seen it like we did in 2021, where you have a guy playing, the same guys playing shortstop, third base all season long, and then he wants to make the changes in the playoffs, in that crunch time. You can't do that. You have to start making changes now. In that bullpen, complete question mark all season. We've seen teams try and go out at the deadline, and even in the offseason, sign closers and try to use them outside of their closer roles. And some guys just haven't adapted. We obviously have Bednar. He's been great as our closer as of late. But, you know, like Williams, he's not... Am I going to say he's a bad pitcher? No, I'm not. I can't confidently say that Devin Williams is a bad pitcher. But some guys just aren't made for the bright lights of the Bronx. And, you know, like we had Weaver for a while in our closer, no longer using him as a closer. We have Camilo Doval. He was the closer for the Giants. We're not using him as a closer. So we're just taking these guys we have essentially 4 potential all-star closers in a bullpen. And you might say, well, that should make it a really good bullpen. But it doesn't when you use them out of those scenarios, because they have to adjust to, like, putting a closer in the 6th inning. Like, they don't have that same sort of, you know, intensity. And just as far as position players too, you got to like figure out who your guys are at going down this stretch. You can't figure it out when you're in game 2 of a wild card series, or you're in the round 1 of the playoffs, like the division series. You can't be figuring it out then. You have to figure out who your guys are now. Anthony Volpe, I mean, you got to feel bad for the guy. He's just been like, it's just what a disaster season he's having. And you just keep thinking every year, you keep hoping as a fan, like, you know, next year's the year, or like, you know, you think first year, 2020 season, like, you know, 21 bombs and 24 stolen bags, didn't do that great offensively, but you're like, we're going to build on this. Gold Glove, there's takeaways from it. 2024, you saw the offensive ability in the beginning. You saw what he's capable of, but then he just burned out once again, just finished poorly. And now you're in your 3rd year. There's like no more excuses. There's like, you can't run this guy. Like if you run Anthony Volpe, he's got to be the worst player on the field. Like, you can't have anybody else on the diamond that's worse than Anthony Volpe. And they got Jose Caballero, who's +5 outs above average at shortstop. Not too great with the bat, but he could steal bases at a crazy rate. So you just got to figure out who your guys are now. That's I think where their main point is for the Yankees.
It comes to a point where Aaron Boone, he defends Volpe all the time and says that we hope he gets it going. We hope he gets it going heading into this final stretch run into October. But then Anthony Volpe steps up to the plate, takes 2 fastballs down the middle, and swings at that high fastball over his head, strikes out on 3 pitches, and then he walks back to the dugout with an unproductive at-bat. Similar on Tuesday versus the Tigers. 2-2 game in the bottom of the 6th inning. 1st and 2nd, nobody out. Volpe gets up there. I assume he was not bunting on his own because he looked over to third base coach Luis Rojas for a sign. He tries to bunt on the first pitch, fouls it off. And then the second pitch, he pops it up to third base. That's an unproductive at-bat. I'd rather, instead of Volpe swinging for the fences, how about hit a ground ball to the right side, advance the runners, and have it be 2nd and 3rd and 1 out. This is a lineup that relies on the home run ball. This is a team that has scored 3 runs in 2 games versus the Detroit Tigers, 3 solo home runs. And then you have the Tigers on the other hand. They get guys on bases. They don't necessarily steal bases. They are towards the bottom of the pack in the MLB when it actually comes to stealing bases. But they run the bases well. They go 1st to 3rd on a base hit to right field. Double in the gap. Guys are scoring from first base. You don't want to be a base clogger. And I'm not saying Well, I am saying the Yankees have some of that. Giancarlo Stanton isn't the fastest in the world, but you live with that when he hits home runs every other night. And in the bullpen, I would say, and James, you can disagree with me on this, playoff time comes. I don't know where Devin Williams and Camilo Duvall, even Mark Leiter Jr. fit into a late game situation. If Max Fried goes game one, assuming they don't win the division and they get to that wild card series, Fried starts game one. If he gives you 5 or 6 innings, if he gives you more, great. But 7th inning comes, Luke Weaver hasn't been great in the 7th inning. Obviously, Aaron Boone goes to a matchup-based situation. But I would go with Tim Hill in the 7th, Luke Weaver in the 8th, and then Bednar in the 9th. I just cannot trust Devin Williams in a one-run game. Sometimes he just looks sad on the mound. He looks like he has no confidence. You can tell. You can read body language from my couch. I can read his body language from my couch. And as you mentioned with Caballero at shortstop, he was 0 for 2 to start the night last night. Last at bat, he finished 1 for 3, base hit to right field. He needs to build off that. Aaron Boone has to make some difficult decisions and sit Anthony Volpe for a second night in a row and kind of figure out how is this playoff lineup going to look as we go into the back end stretch here.
Yeah, because specifically about the Anthony Volpe point, you play Volpe over Caballero because you think he's got that ceiling of a bat. You play him because of the bat, obviously not because of the defense this season, because for those who don't know, he leads the MLB with errors. I don't know what he's at right now because he just keeps getting worse, but he leads the MLB with errors. And so you're essentially playing Volpe because he has the potential to be a better bat than Caballero. But Volpe, in his last 30 games, not just his season is horrific. You look at his overall numbers, it's bad. But in just the last 30 games, he's batting 146, getting on base only 183. That's what he's getting on base. That's his on base percentage. He's getting on base at a 183 clip. This guy is not seeing the base pass, and that's in 30 games. So at that point, you have nothing to lose offensively by putting in Caballero, who, if he does get on base, he leads the American League in stolen bases, so he's going to cause chaos, and he's a plus defender. So, like, in my mind, as a Yankee fan, it's like a no-brainer. You gotta sit Anthony Volpe, and then this offseason, you really got to make the decision. You got to sit long and hard to think about what the future of this team is going to look like at short. But as far as, like, late-game scenarios for relievers, like, truthfully, it's a gamble. Like, the entire bullpen is a question mark. No matter who you go to, it doesn't really matter. You're gambling regardless. I really do believe Devin Williams is a good pitcher. You can't bring him in past the 7th inning. You just can't. Because if you get a pitcher that gives you 5 solid innings, and Devin Williams is even in the conversation, you got to bring him in the 6th. Because you can't bring him in the 8th and have him implode and then lose the game. Because if he implodes in the 6th, you get him out, they score like 3 or 4 runs off of him, you still have time to recoup that. Because you're either going to get a 1-2-3 inning from him, or he's going to give up 3 or 4 runs. And if you give up 3 runs in the 6th, it's a lot easier to recover from that than if you give up 3 or 4 runs in the 8th inning when you only have like 3 outs left. So I think as far as the bullpen, got to look at Devin Williams as like a mid-game guy. Like, you got to put him in like the 6th. I think Weaver is still a good setup. Like, has he been the Weaver that we saw last year? No, but like that's all right because we know what he can do. He's performed in the playoffs. He was one of the biggest pieces of the World Series run that the Yankees went on last year. So you got to see him as a setup guy, and then you just got to ride with Bednar in the 9th. And I would not be surprised if we see a lot of 6-out saves coming from the pen from Bednar. He had not done that much in Pittsburgh, but I would not be surprised in the playoffs if we see them rely on Bednar heavily, as the rest of the Yankees bullpen is it just seems like they're underwater. Like, it's just hard to rely on them, honestly.
Very, very well said. And you talk about Bednar specifically as it pertains to 6-out saves. Bednar isn't your typical closer in terms of you just have a fastball and then maybe a slider. David Bednar does a great job of mixing in his fastball, slider, and changeup combination along with that splitter. So it's kind of like you can't really sit on a pitch if you are a batter. Obviously, 0-0 count if you sell out fastball and you hit a home run, great. But Bednar has that ability to keep the hitters off balance using a multitude of pitches, and that's what makes David Bednar so great. So the Yankees and Aaron Boone, a lot of difficult decisions that they have to make down the stretch. So very interesting to see. And with that being said, I want to put out this question in terms of the MLB. Which team in Major League Baseball, whether they are currently in the playoff race or out of the playoff race, has the biggest chance and the best chance to make the most noise when October baseball comes knocking at the door?
All right, this is going to be a hot take. I think as a Yankees fan, I'm not worried about the Blue Jays. I'm not worried about the Tigers. I always worry about the Astros because they just got our number. In the American League, as a Yankees fan, I don't want to match up against the Astros. I also don't think the Brewers are going to do that well. Number 1 seed in the entire MLB right now. They have the best record by far with 89 wins. I don't think they're going to go that far. The Brewers have historically been a regular season team. Could they? I think they can. But I just think they're going to be overpowered in the playoffs or just not come through because that's just what it seems like it's going to be. You never want to see the Dodgers either, and you definitely don't want to see the Padres. Those are some feisty teams. But as far as teams who aren't even in the wild card right now, that if they got their shot, you don't want to see, I'm going to go ahead and say the Rangers and the Guardians. Now, the Guardians have had a really bad season. Like, as far as expectations, like, not what you expected. But, you know, while the Yankees beat them in the ALCS last year, they gave us some gut-wrenching, like, heartbreak moments that I would never want to relive ever again in my life. And they're a team that can be scary if they have everything working for them. And the Rangers, just dangerous lineup, dangerous bullpen, dangerous rotation. You just, like, in a 3-game series, too, if you match up with them in a wild card series and you get Nathan Eovaldi, who, wait, is he out for the season? Nathan Eovaldi, I'm sorry, might be out for the season. I completely forget. But they have they just have a dangerous rotation. Those are just teams that you just don't want to see. And as far as the National League, the Giants, who pretty much gave up at the deadline, are now on this crazy hot streak and are only 2 away from making their wild card berth behind the New York Mets. And the Giants just seem like another team. These are all teams where, like, they have nothing to lose. So they're going to come at you with everything they got that they might be upsetting some teams. Will they go for the whole thing? You know, they'll probably not win it, but they will probably upset some teams along the way. So I would not want to see those guys in the wild card.
I'm going to go with, just as a team I think that is not necessarily that they are the favorite, but a team that I think will make the most noise. It's the Detroit Tigers, in my opinion. Who wants to face... They're going to win the division. Who wants to face Tarek Skubal in Game 1 of the ALDS? You're already down 1-0 unless he implodes. But Skubal is a guy throwing 99-mile-per-hour cutters as a lefty. Who hits that? Nobody hits that. And the difference between a team such as the Yankees versus the Tigers is the bottom of the lineup for the Yankees, Austin Wells, who I'll give him his flowers. He has played better. Anthony Volpe, Ryan McMahon. Is the Tigers lineup is very much good, top to bottom, 1 to 9. Put it this way: Zach McKinstry, the 8-hitter for the Tigers, he is hitting .266 with 11 home runs, 48 RBIs, and 19 stolen bases. Now, you might think 11 home runs. Well, that's not very good. But this is a team, they have guys at the top of the lineup that can hit home runs. You have Riley Green, you have Gleyber Torres, you have Kerry Carpenter. You need guys at the bottom of the lineup who can set the stage and build momentum when these guys at the top of the lineup come up to bat. So it's very interesting with the Tigers, and they have one guy that I want to highlight is their catcher, Dylan Dingler. This is a guy, and you don't really notice how good a catcher is defensively unless you really watch them and hone in on them. This is a guy offensively who is hitting .280 on the season with 12 homers and 53 RBIs in the 9-hole compared to 2024 where he hit .167 with 1 home run. And on the defensive side, this season up until after last night, Dingler has caught 896 innings the entirety of the season and has 0 passed balls and has a framing run value of +7, which places him in the 90th percentile of catchers. And David Cohn, one of the analysts on the Yes Network for the Yankees, made a very good point yesterday when he talked about how most catchers, if they're not good at it in the minor leagues, once they get to the big leagues, they learn how to frame. But what a lot of catchers, the experienced ones, still don't get is when they are framing a pitch, their upper body is still moving. Their glove may be as still as possible, but their upper body still moves, which takes away a lot of strikes. And the difference with Dylan Dingler is that he doesn't move his body a lot, and he takes away a lot of strikes. +7, so he's stealing approximately 7 runs per game. So he's a guy, you have McKinstry in the 8 hole and Dingler in the 9 hole. There's no weakness in the Tigers lineup. And with Tarek Skubal pitching game 1, I think that's an automatic win for the Tigers. But Lorenzo, I want to put this question out to you because I know that you are a big Pittsburgh Pirates fan. And we talk about the Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, all these big market teams making a playoff push. And then you have the low market teams such as the Pirates, White Sox, Rockies. Does there need to be a salary floor? Does owner Bob Nutting, do we just need to spend more money to surround guys such as Paul Skeens with talent?
2 words. Fire Nutting. First off. Second off, none of those teams you mentioned, I think there's a great divide in baseball. And that's the problem with the sport. That's the biggest problem to me. You got teams that are like low end that you'd be lucky to have like a postseason appearance or a couple years of a great success. And then you have teams like the Yankees, the Mets, the Dodgers, Padres, all these huge market teams that always make the playoffs some year, yet their fans are still disappointed somehow. Or they're not satisfied enough. The thing about the low market team, I think you're absolutely right. The divide is unbelievable, and it's only a matter of time to me that Paul Skeens is going to go to somewhere that's a larger market, like the Cubs.
He's going to look great in pinstripes. I'm just going to...
Yeah, or with the Yankees, if they're dumb enough, which the Pirates are dumb enough. Don't put it past them, the Cubs. Like any high market team or at least middle market team, he's not going to last there. A great talent isn't going to flourish on the Pirates. And he's not going to stay there his whole career, not anymore. Because we've gotten to that point where they can easily, the Yankees, can easily buy out Paul Skeens if they wanted to right now. If the decimal point is put in the right place at the right time, he'll buy out to you guys. And you guys can see him next month in pinstripes. Honestly, that's where we've gotten in baseball. And I think that's kind of where I personally have lost interest in it. Me personally. Just because maybe I should just switch my team because the Pirates are that bad. Like, people don't understand how bad they are.
No, it's a problem.
Crazy. It's a problem. That's the biggest problem with me in baseball. Also, promotional-wise, they're not too great as well. But that's the biggest problem is their small market teams. They never really have a run anymore. It's always the same teams every year now that have like the big run. And if the small market teams do get a run, it's like a month run, and then afterwards they fall off. James, please prove me wrong with something or agree with me.
No.
I want to get your thoughts on that, actually, because this is the baseball guy
I'm
here.
definitely agreeing, and it is the number one problem across Major League Baseball right now. There will almost undoubtedly be a lockout after this next coming season regarding all sorts of things, but there is, you said it really well, there is a great divide between teams that are just scraping, scraping, clawing, hoping for a stroke of luck to even have a chance at a run, and then there's the huge market teams that have essentially endless money who will get whoever they want or try to get whoever they want and make the playoffs every year and stuff like that. Paul Skeens is arguably the best pitcher in baseball, and if he doesn't get injured, he will probably continue to be the best pitcher in baseball for a long time. The Pirates have struck gold with this pick, and they could build their franchise around this player, but just historically, based on what they've done, he's probably going to get moved the second his arbitration is up and he's a free agent because he's going to ask for way too much money. And you're right, he's probably going to go to a big market team. It's going to be like the Dodgers, it's going to be like the Yankees, something like that. But it is going to be likely that we see a lockout in the coming years because of this exact problem.
Pirates haven't made the postseason since 2014. Their last playoff victory was in 2013 when owner Bob Nutting was still there. But it just seems as if Nutting has no desire whatsoever to just pay anyone. And you can't win in Major League Baseball if you don't get some talent. I'm not saying you can't develop, but there has to be something there. But that is going to do it here on the Sports Corner. You are listening to 90.3 WMSC, your favorite talk show about sports. I'm your host, Sebastian Stratton, joined alongside Lorenzo Gonzalez and James. Thank you very much for being a part of the show. You did a fantastic job, and we will be here next week, same time, same place, so tune in. Have a great day, everyone.